And it's also true, I guess. I mean, you said you're an introvert. I'm not an introvert, but still, I think often we think our story is maybe not big enough, crazy enough to be inspiring. But almost every story is inspiring, so I think just to also encourage people, just embrace your story, and for sure there will be people that will be inspired, right?
100%, 100%. Yeah. Just remove that silencer from your voice, it serves no purpose. Just speak.
Welcome to Play It by Your Rules, the podcast for those tired of living by somebody else's script and ready to live and lead on their terms. I'm your host, Maggie Rombach, coach, speaker, and strategist. I'm here to spark a little rebel energy and leave you with a sense of possibility. Each episode, I'll talk to leaders, adventurers, experts, and changemakers who found their way. Some loud and bold, others quiet and intentional. You'll walk away with fresh insights, inspiration, and practical tools to chart your next chapter. If you're craving more freedom, flow, and fun, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Play It by Your Rules. I'm Maggie Rombach, your host. And Tara, on this podcast, it's all about rewriting the script. So instead of me reading out your bio, I'd love you to introduce yourself in your own words. So who are you and what rules are you ready to shake up?
Thank you very much, Maggie. And hello, everyone. I'm Tara, and I'm Indian. I would call myself as a passionate wanderlust person. I love traveling. I was born in a city called Calcutta in the eastern part of India, in the suburbs of it. Very working class. My mom, dad both went to office, into finances, and coming from a very traditional background where the only motto in life is to study hard and get a government job. I think that's very important because everybody wanted who were running for that safety. And but I decided not to go for the government job. I studied computers. I had been working as a IT consultant for many, many years, worked with big banks. And one thing is a constant in my life is the changes. I left Calcutta. I moved to different cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, and now finally I'm in Geneva for the past 1.5 years. I don't know how long I'll be here. Hopefully long enough because I love it in here. And making good friends, trying to learn something new, always having this growth mindset. And what is also very cool for me to understand is I love working with people, working in different cultures. I've worked in for companies in America, Asia Pacific, Japan, and now I'm in Switzerland. So I think that's also one of the themes that even though you are from a particular culture, you don't really need to ascribe to all the cultural good things. You can take it from there, but be open to learn, be open to challenge yourself. And yeah, that's probably a quick summary of.
I love that. And I already hear a few rules shaking up a little bit. So you didn't go for that government job. And also what I hear you say when you work with and in other cultures, that you don't need to just follow the script given to you by your culture. You can also shake that up a bit and adapt it when you are in a different culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
So I think it's really important that you don't want to come across as somebody, outsider trying to dictate terms. Being respectful is important. Having that intention that you are coming here to learn, to communicate. And yes, in the process, you might offend somebody, but it's not intentional. The intention is to get along well, find a win-win solution. I think that's what we should focus on.
So true. So, Tara, you already mentioned your growth mindset and that you love connecting with people and learning, and how we met was through Toastmasters. And you've been, I mean, I'm still a Toastmaster baby. I only joined this year, but you're a distinguished Toastmaster, even, I think. So you've been for a long time a Toastmaster. So how long have you been a Toastmaster and what got you there? What got you hooked? You started a long time ago, but you're still hooked. So what's your Toastmaster story?
Thank you, Maggie. Yes, I am a distinguished Toastmaster, and it's going to be almost 10 years that I'm stuck with Toastmaster. I do not say that I'm stuck with it. I'm absolutely in love with it. And for me, the journey happened because, I always believe that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And for me, it was a time when, you are growing up you are elevating in the corporate ladder. Nowadays, the ladder doesn't exist. And then you need to be vocal. You need to really have your voice sorted out. You need to inspire people. And I was invited to a leadership summit in US, and then a room full of American expats and executives. I was like literally panicking because I did not had a lot of confidence in my voice or what I had to say. Um, so, okay, what do we do? Quick fix. Become an expert in public speaking, 7 days. So, of course, it did not work out for me because nobody is going to give me 7 days holiday just to learn something, in the middle of a busy quarter. Then I found Toastmaster, and through that, I also found my first mentor, Geeta Prasanna. And she was such an inspiring person. She was leading one of the DNI chapters in India and Asia Pacific. And in the process, I got to work a lot with her. And every time she will come on the stage, she will inspire me with her wisdom, with her thoughts, how she structured and analyzed every situation. So I stayed for the people. And in the process, I developed and I found my own voice that you can experiment with it. You probably have one way of thinking about life, but then you experiment whether can you be a humorous speaker? Can you be a storyteller? Can you be an informative speaker? Can you inspire audience or motivate them? So all these different aspects is what I really learned in Toastmasters, and also surrounded by this wonderful mentors. Even I have a lot of mentees who have always inspired me. So I think it's a really win-win process. And the reason I stayed is because Toastmasters to me is like going to a bookstore. You know your story. You are like your own book. But when you go to a bookstore, there are 1,000 other books, and you have no idea. You haven't even opened or flipped one chapter. So for me, that's the curiosity aspect because everybody is like a bookshelf in themselves. They have so many stories, some of them inspiring, some of them quite moving. So for me, that's like another fuel to my growth mindset that I need to learn. I need to get better.
Wow, I love that. The bookstore and the books on the shelf. That's amazing. And there is so many rich elements in what you said, because what I hear you say is also that Toastmasters is really like a playground. Now I'm all on this whole mission about freedom, flow, and fun. So there will be a lot of flow and fun in Toastmasters, but there also is another F related to speaking, which is fear, right? And you said it before, what brought you there in first place was being nervous about a big event. And I can so relate to that because I do remember moments when I had to go to our governance meetings, like really the top guys at the Red Cross where I worked, or to directorate meetings, which again is kind of really the highest level of administration. And even so, I was fairly confident about my content and what I had to say. I would feel my heart beating like crazy before going there. So there is a need, I think, for all of us to just become more confident with these, finding your voice. And what I also heard you say is when you talked about voice, there's literally the voice, like how we use it, if you go slow
Right.
and deep, but there's also the content, right? It's really both sides of it. So now you literally help people also to find their voice. And you already explained a little bit how you found yours. So was that primarily through Toastmasters, or was there anything else that played a role in that search for your own voice?
To be honest with you, we all have a voice. But the problem is that when I was growing up, I was an introverted person surrounded by extroverts.
You're introvert. You're hiding that well, Tara.
I was probably now I'm an ambivert. So what happens is that I remember, spending some time with my cousins. We were in one of the family function, and they were talking about a topic which was very interesting for me. I knew a lot about it. It's about one chess championship. So I used to play a lot of chess, and everybody was talking. And then one cousin suddenly realized that, okay, Tara also plays chess. Maybe we should give him a chance to talk and express his thoughts. And I was a little bit annoyed, but I spoke for like maybe 30 seconds, and then I, kept quiet. But the point here is that even though I was annoyed back then that why are they expecting me to speak up and talk, I realized that it's the silencer that I have put on myself. I mean, people really wanted me to speak, but it's the silencer in your mind that it doesn't matter, why I should have to express my opinion. Sometimes we just hold back. And I believe that Toastmaster course has a huge role to play in that, because you're forced to speak, you're forced to take that little risk. Table topics, you come and you have no clue what the topic is going to come, so it's like a mental exercise that you are exposing yourself to, and the small risks that we are taking every single meeting to be a little bit better, I think in the long run this is like an atomic habit, gives a huge return to
So
finding our
Tara, maybe
voice.
explain a bit more for our listeners, because you mentioned table topic, and I know now what you're talking about. But this is about impromptu speaking. So maybe say a bit more about how it came along and what it's aiming to achieve. But maybe also say a bit about, because what I found amazing about Toastmasters is that it's so well thought through. Every role you could take on, you learn. Even when you're not speaking yet, even if you're just listening, you train a muscle. So maybe you want to say a bit more about that.
For sure. Thank you very much, Maggie. Well, table topic is like sounds very easy, a topic, but then you go around the table with a topic or different topics. So what we do is call somebody on the stage voluntarily, usually, and
Or
they come and
voluntold sometimes.
voluntold. And once they come, we give them a topic, and it could be something fairly simple. Let's say your hobbies or your favorite travel destination. And the goal is to speak for at least 90 seconds. You speak for 90 seconds. Don't overspeak. Don't need to exceed 2.5 minutes. And then all of a sudden, even though it's a topic which is fairly simple, you will realize something interesting happens. You're like, okay, how do I organize this thought? I have too many contents, too many things to speak about my favorite travel spot, but how do I organize it? How do I start it? What story I add? So over and over, when we are attempting these table topics, it helps us to organize our thought a little bit better. Because for sure you can talk about 2 hours about a topic like this, but then the hard part is the brevity and still having a bit of that impact when you end. So,
So
and
this is
then,
almost, sorry for jumping in, but it just came up. I hadn't realized. This is almost like an extended elevator pitch, right? So
yeah,
elevator pitch typically is like what, 30 seconds? So it's a bit longer, but you still have to really nail your message, because a minute to 2 minutes, it's not long either, so you cannot go on forever.
exactly. It's completely like elevator pitch, but you can, wander a bit because 2 minutes allows you the time to wander around a bit. But yet the message needs to be impactful. Elevators speeches are designed to be memorable, and so in table topics we don't really go for that shock factor, stand out and shocked, and then people will remember, wow, what a great table topics. If you could do that, that would be the ultimate achievement. But our goal really is to be concise and make it a point quickly. And then in the process, when you are speaking, you are thinking and you're just parallel processing. And I think it's an amazing intellectual exercise. I think we should all practice that. And for that reason, Toastmasters is really, you're never really sure. You're never really sure about your next topic.
So that's actually something super interesting you just brought up on the thinking and speaking at the same time. Because I only started a few months ago, but it happened to me a few times that I literally spoke and could think at the same time. And I had never realized that I'm able to do that, So it's almost like, okay, I'm talking and where do I go with this? It's quite fascinating to just even notice that. The other bit that comes up is, this is almost also a perfect interviewing testing ground, right? Because, now so many people are looking for jobs and having interviews can be really scary. And an interview is almost like a table topic, right? You don't know what the interviewer will throw at you. And then you have to make an impactful point fairly quickly, right?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And in interviewing, generally in a technical interview, you somehow know your content and then you find a structure. But in the interviews, like a behavior interviews, they are really testing your skill, what did you do when something really broke or your system did not work? What was your reaction? And in the way, of course, you can rehearse quite a lot, you can practice it, but it also a way for them to judge that how do you handle a situation, a crisis situation, or what do you do when everything is going well for you? And I think it's also an exercise because with the stories, essentially when we are focusing on the stories and trying to tell that authentically, we are exposing a bit of about our character, about our resilience, perhaps, that will we be able to, if a situation like that arises, will you be able to come out unscathed, whether or whether I come across as somebody, well, this person is values are not really aligned. So I think table topics definitely allows us to do that.
And you're so right. It's all about storytelling. And, so there is a sense of structure in table topics, but also in interviews, right? There is, for instance, the STAR, which is situation, task, action,
Actions.
result. So I guess this works for both for table topics or for interviewing. So I guess what you could prepare for interviews is, and for table topics, to have a set of stories ready that make that point that you describe, that make that point of how did I have a certain result. But then to make an impactful impression, it probably comes across stronger if you have a concrete story to emphasize the point. So if you say like, oh, I managed 20 million and I generated 5 million savings, okay, that's a big number. But if you can package the same thing into a story, it's probably more memorable and more impactful. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, see, even though the businesses are number driven, but businesses are run by people and people connect with each other based on the stories that we tell ourselves or the stories that we learn from each other. So number is never going to replace the real stories. We want to know what happened, how you felt, what was the emotion going through, like what you said. You said that in order to present in front of a big audience you were nervous, and those are the vulnerabilities sometimes gives an extra edge to our story, and I think we should never be afraid to share them.
So that is a perfect lead to the next question I prepared, because I wanted to get a bit into communication and leadership. And I think you're so right, is a big skill and also challenge as a leader is to show up authentically and be vulnerable, because it might be scary, but that's when people see the real you. So what I was curious about, you worked in India and in Switzerland, and you worked with American companies, so you worked across very different cultures. So did you notice any differences in terms of communication or leadership styles in those different cultures? And maybe was there anything that helped you to navigate those?
To be frank with you, there are enormous amount of differences, even though we all essentially work for the same company, IBM or Infosys, and we advise the same kind of clients in the similar sectors like banking and pharma and manufacturing. So what I would clearly say that in India, the hierarchy matters a lot. So you are in a group of people and then the vice president is sitting with you. You somehow tend to go with the wisdom of the vice president. The discussion is always nudging towards what he thinks. So that's a very hierarchical structure. Whereas in America, people are more I mean, it eventually probably be done by the vice president, but people speaks up, and they are encouraged to speak up. And Americans are very, very vocal. I love them to they are really amazing and expressive. Whereas in Japan, what I saw is that they're never going to disagree with you. And on the face of it, they're so polite. But then when the email change starts happening, you know that, oh my God, this is not. So you completely misread the room. And I think
So
that's the
that's, hang on,
culture.
that's interesting. So people do speak up in writing, but they don't speak
They,
up in speaking.
in the speaking, of course not. They will not speak up in the meeting, but in the writing, you will really sense that they are asking so many questions. So clearly, they are not really happy with because, of course, they are trying to mitigate the risk. And whatever you have proposed, you haven't really answered all the questions. And Japanese are extremely thorough. They are very detailed oriented people. And for them, a little risk is not good enough. They need to know what is the plan. So they are very detailed oriented, and you cannot really say, oh, this is this great vision I have for you. Like, no, 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 no. Break it down. Tell me what exactly you're going to do. So that's a big difference.
That's so
And
interesting. Yeah.
I would also say that in India, in the discussions, there are no real order. So sometimes it kind of breaks into a chaos. So everybody's like interrupting each other. A lot of passion governs. Whereas in Switzerland, it's also quite opposite. I felt that people are patiently waiting for their turn to speak. And, there is an element of democracy here where, okay, let's vote for it. Do we have the right quorum for it? And of course, when the decision needs to be made quickly, people generally go with, what the leaders think and stuff like that. But generally, I saw it's more of a consensus building leadership process, whereas in India and US, it's more towards the hierarchy or the people with the heaviest weight gets to make those decisions.
So that's really interesting. And that makes me think. So do you feel, are there also skills we're building in Toastmasters that help with that? Because, we spoke so far about the speaking, but in Toastmasters, there are also roles that train the muscle of listening and of observing. So is it a fair hypothesis to say, given that you build your muscle also in listening, you would even pick up those differences, because there's also something to even notice what's going on?
Of course. I think the listening part is one of the most underrated part in our communication. I mean, we have 2 ears and one mouth, so clearly the proportion has to be like that. We need to listen a lot. And in Toastmasters, what you're not really doing a passive listening. You're trying to actively engage. Why she is like when you become an evaluator in Toastmaster, like we're all giving each other feedback. And when we are evaluating a speech, we're really trying to understand that why that phrase is used, why the voice went up, why she, she brought that story at the beginning and not the end. And it just creates such a nuanced way of thinking about communication that you are wondering that if I had structured the story differently or my speech differently, the meaning could have been quite different. The impact could have been quite different. So listening is superbly important. And of course, it's a muscle that we exercise. I'm personally been told that I'm not a good listener. I'm trying to change that. And Toastmaster really, really helped me with that. And because you are really making notes, so you cannot forget. So active listening is superbly important.
So talking about important skills. So I'm having an ongoing discussion with some of our Toastmaster friends. So one ongoing discussion is on writing. Writing being another undervalued skill. So basically by writing, you have to structure your thoughts, which will then help you with your speaking. And on top of that, last week, as we both know, we had this amazing speech about reading, which for me was a new angle to also say the more you read, first of all, it helps you with your vocabulary, particularly when you're not a native speaker. But then also, if you read very diverse content, it shapes also your thinking, your writing, and ultimately your speaking. So I'd be just curious to hear your take on that. Where would you put the needle on all of those skills? How important are they, or how are they connected?
I think they are hugely connected and almost undervalued. Like writing, we no longer really, people are not really writing. I see my nephews, completely different generations, are like 18, 19. They don't really like to write. They're just typing and this SMS lingos. Well, I'm all for it. I would like to learn how they're doing it. But there's something really happens, curious thing happens when you take the pen and write on a piece of paper. Daily journaling is one of the most underrated superpower. People say that, you're doing a brain dump. When you're going to bed, you're like, oh my God, I have this 10 task I haven't done. And, just before going to bed, just write it down on a piece of paper and you will have a sound sleep. I guarantee you that. And then at the same time, when you're writing your thoughts, you are just the first one I always say it's going to be real bad. It will be shit. It's called draft zero. So discard it. But it's just a brain dump that you're doing that. This is the topic. This is what I want to say. What are the things? And then draft one, draft two comes, and then you connect the dots. Okay, this story goes at the bottom. This dialogue goes at the beginning. This narration needs to come at the end, and then you just create that puzzle. You find and solve your puzzle of communication. I think it's extremely important. Reading also is superbly important. And for me, I am more lenient towards non-fictions because I like to use this time to learn something new. For me, fiction is like, I don't really want to, listen to so many different stories but for me, reading is a power where I like to learn about new topics and, enrich my mind, not just fun stories.
Nice. Yeah, that's so important. And also, I'm wondering, because now you mentioned your nephews, they consume technology or use technology in a completely different way. So now we have also AI and the language models like ChatGPT and the likes. So in your experience, or where do you see the opportunities and the risk also for writing speeches and things? And maybe just to share, my first two speeches, I heavily had ChatGPT help, and I almost learned it by heart because I was really nervous because we haven't talked about yet. So a typical prepared speech is 5 to 7 minutes. So when I first joined, I was like, oh my God, I have done presentations with PowerPoints and all of that. But to just speak me without any script for 5 to 7 minutes hugely stressed me out. So I over prepared properly. But now I'm trying to use AI differently. I try to use it more as kind of give me feedback, but don't give me the words. So I don't know, what's your experience and where do you see the opportunity, or maybe also where do you see the risk?
Well, I think this is a very good question, Maggie, because I am very, very curious about AI, particularly in the aspect of AI and ethics. And this is somewhere I'm researching more and, try to come up with a book. But what I would say is that ChatGPT is a very, very cool skill to have to play around and use the right amount of prompts. And sometimes it can clarify that you can say, okay, I have this idea, I have this scenario of a speech. I don't know, maybe a day in your school or the first day in office, whatever it is. And then it can bring out it can be used as an assistant to tell you, okay, what about that angle? What was the character that were present? What was going through in your mind? How did you solve a particular problem? So it can be a great agent to brainstorm, like we are discussing with a mentor or your friend. So we can do that. And that's absolutely legit. But in my opinion, this is like your own thought has been reflected and refined by an AI agent. And over time, I am afraid that more people are using ChatGPT. I believe that more and more speeches are going to be very, very similar. And this is something is going to really eliminate our critical thinking skills. And we should never lose that. And I think that is something which I'm very afraid of because, I see people are, the younger generation, my nephew's generation, they're using ChatGPT like in a massive scale. All their essays are being written by ChatGPT. I mean, he's just doing a minor tweak. And I think when we were in college and we were writing our dissertations, I mean, that was the biggest headache. I mean, we'll spend weeks to come up with a 10-page dissertation. And in a way that really helped us to
Mm.
really understand the content. But here you're just outsourcing your critical thinking skills to an AI. I don't think it's a good idea for humanity or for us in long run. So we have to be very prudent about how we want to use the superpower.
There's actually a podcast episode by Simon Sinek on the use
Uh-huh.
of AI. And he talks about something similar. He basically says, we sometimes have to be in the dirty mess of data, or, we have to be there to be able to come out with critical thinking, with clear conclusions. So yes, we can delegate it to ChatGPT, and then on top it might be hallucinating. So we also have to build the muscle of always double checking and verifying. But we are indeed in the risk of losing that. And it was really interesting for me. I listened to that when I was working on a project at work, where it was like, I have to analyze a lot of data. I just, anonymize it and ask ChatGPT to do it. And I gave it a shot, and the outcome was okay-ish, but not great. But after listening to that episode, I was like, you know what? Now I'm going to go through freaking 70 job descriptions or role descriptions that are really dull to read. But I just do that to really understand. And it was amazing because, yes, that took me a few days, but the level of outcome and analysis, and then the follow-up I could do because I really understood, was different. So yes, ChatGPT, Summer, or Copilot, doesn't matter. Like, one of the AIs
Yeah,
analyzed it for me in like no time. But actually that wasn't even that useful.
I totally agree with you, Maggie. And I think you're touching a very important point that as adults, we somehow, I mean, for our education system in India, it was like every mistake you made, it's no, no. You are not allowed to make mistakes. One mistake is 1 points gone. So when we are really running for the same amount of jobs or same amount of profiles, so mistakes becomes like, okay, don't make it. But then just in Toastmasters, we are here to fail. We are here to normalize the failure that yes, some days you will not be able to come up with a story. Some days you are not be able to say or dazzle your audience, and that's okay. But you are trying. You are, as you said, it's like this messy middle. And when you are ready to fail, when you are ready to accept that, you know what, there is a point that I need to improve, and I need to get better. I need to improve myself. So that realization has to come from within ourselves. The same people who build these AI systems, they have done coding for thousands and thousands of hours, and that's why the systems are acting like that. Are we really going to trade our human experience of learning and challenging ourselves with such amount of intellectual um, uh, easiness, that it's so convenient to use ChatGPT, but it's taking the humanity away. It's just stripping us away from that challenge, which really makes us unique human. So I think that's definitely something to
And that's
be
actually also
cautious about.
that's also something Simon Sinek said in this video, that there will be a premium on vulnerability, on authenticity, and on human messiness. At one
Oh,
point, the super ideal, perfect standard thing produced by AI is everybody will have the same thing. And that also gets back to storytelling and interviewing for jobs, even, or writing cover letters or whatever. I mean, it's so easy to ask ChatGPT to write a CV,
yeah.
but you will get the same standard stuff. So the actual nuance and to stick out from the mass will come through your personal stories. And your personal stories are unique. So you can maybe, make them sound a little bit better with the help of AI, but AI cannot invent your story, at least not unless you downloaded, your whole life story into AI. Maybe that'll come at one point. But for now,
Yeah.
it's still us that have to pick the story, and then AI can help.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine if you're a hiring manager and you're getting thousands of CVs, exactly the same opening statement, exactly the same. They're like what they have done, one, two, three bullet points, and they're like, which one is really human and which one is like, written by AI? I mean, the AI systems are telling you, identify, make sure that you are human. You're just taking a button. But for the hiring managers, like, how do I find it? So I think it's going to create uh, a lot of confusion, and I think it's going to disrupt the job market quite a lot, because you're not really sure who is lying and who is just pretending to be this amazing story writer or a CV. The reality could be quite different. So what happens is that the real people, probably like you, who is like writing your own story and your resume, probably taking a backseat because you're not really ticking all the box, but you probably have the highest value that you could provide if being hired, if being seen. So I think it's a really big mess that we are in right now.
So there's another challenge linked to that, because now you have AI writing the application, but you also have AI checking the application. And so now I stopped my blog. And one of the reasons I stopped my blog and I focus on the podcast is because, we're two real people talking to each other, so this is not AI, right?
Right.
So that was one of the reasons, but also because I realized, I actually, just for the fun of it, I ran one of my blog posts, which was AI improved. But, I have drafted it. It was all my ideas, but I did improve my English. I'm not a native speaker, so I improved my
Right.
English with AI. And then I ran my blog through one of those softwares that check whether or not it's written by AI. And it came out 100% written by AI. And I'm like, okay, but now I'm not going to just make it worse so it passes the AI. So that's why, for instance, you will see on my LinkedIn newsletter, I always state this is AI improved. And I also use that when I apply. I mean, I'm not sure if I stated explicitly when I apply for jobs, but I think in today's world, employers should just assume people use ChatGPT, but should not disqualify people. If you don't use it, it's also stupid, because this is a powerful technology. So using it is actually a good thing. But then you have to still make it your own. So I just really see this challenge when AI writes, AI checks, and the humans only come into the process quite late. There's a huge risk that you actually disqualify really strong candidates that are just on top of the technology and they're using ChatGPT, but they don't pass these robots that decide, they haven't done the work. See what I'm trying to say?
I mean, you touched a very strong nerve here, Maggie, and I would say that, are we really becoming the intermediaries between the communication between AIs? Because if AI is writing the resume and if AI is checking it, what are we doing? We are just becoming an intermediary. We no longer have the providence or power to make these judgments and decisions. And then we are in the mercy of this all-knowing algorithm who somehow thinks that, okay, this human is qualified, this human is not qualified, completely stripping us our personality, our life experience. And I think this is very dehumanizing to a point, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah. And you know what? I'm hoping that the listeners, some of my listeners are leaders and some of them are hopefully HR leaders. So if you're in HR and you're listening to that, find a way to make the best of the technology. To find a way, yes, probably if you get hundreds of resumes, somehow you probably need the help of AI. But then ask the right and the clever questions. There must be a way to develop an AI that doesn't just check, is that the typical words AI uses, because that's, I think, what they're currently doing. But let's develop an AI for employers that are recruiting that say, okay, check this cover letter and the CV with the LinkedIn profile or something, triangulate, double check, see if that is a real story. And if it's a coherent story of a real person that is applying, that should come on top of the pack first in, because it's a good story and it's AI improved. You know what I'm saying? So we have to shake up that rule and change that game, right?
Completely, Maggie. And I think this is going to be much easier said than done, because this system is incentivizing itself. Because, guess what? When you don't have to hire 30 people to review resume, or, set up 15 minutes call with them every single day, you are saving on the bottom line. But the bottom line will not exist because your top line is finished, because you are not really thinking 5 years who is going to lead your company, what kind of talents you're attracting and hiring. Because if you because ultimately the business is still between humans, right? Between the trust that we build, the legacy that we have, the products that we have created is between the humans. And when you are taking out that most important element, I think the business is bound to suffer. So I think this is a very difficult problem because everybody's focused on the next quarter, the next bottom line, annual revenue, but we are just really losing the track of the long term thinking, like 5 years, 10 years. If you're not really hiring the right candidates, because AI can do the entry level jobs, who's going to take up those leadership positions? So I think it's something to really think about.
Yeah, that's a really tricky one. So we could go on this one forever. This is so rich. It gives me a lot of ideas. I'm like, maybe my next newsletter will be on some of this. So let's see. We'll be moving into my quick fire burst round in a second. But before we do that, you're now the president of Impact Toastmasters in Geneva. So is there anything, what's your ambition? What's the one script or the one thing you would like to change or rewrite for the club or its members?
Oh, you are also part of the executive committee, Maggie. So you are the vice president of membership. So that's a very, very important role. As we were focusing on members and the people and their stories, I think my goal would be to have the demystify Toastmasters and bring every member together. You don't have to be so afraid about taking responsibilities. Come, experience and see what your voice really tells you. Identify your voice and give it more power, because the world needs more such authentic voice. It doesn't have to be the most polished one, but you have a voice, and that's something. So I think we all need to focus on that. And I would love for people to visit our club. We are called the Impact Toastmasters Geneva. We meet on every second and fourth Tuesdays of a month at Impact Hub, which is just behind Cornava from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's a 2 hours meeting. You can find us on meetup.com. And of course, you can reach out to Maggie or me on LinkedIn for sure.
That's great. And yeah, I love that how you say you like to demystify it, because that's really it. And people don't know. And this is also for people that are not based in Geneva. There is a chance that there's another Toastmaster club nearby, and all of them have the same rule. You can just show up as a guest for 3 times to test the water. And then you just see if you get hooked. So yeah, we'll get back to that in the wrap up, but already now, just to encourage listeners, get curious, get out there, reach out if there's a Toastmasters. If you're in the Geneva area, come to ours because it's cool and you'll meet me and Tara. But yeah, it's just amazing. Fantastic. So let's go to the quick burst questions, which is like table topics drilled down to the biggest challenge, because you're supposed to try to answer in one word. Let's see how it goes. Ready to go?
I'll try my best. Okay, let's go.
Cool. So what's one belief you had to drop to live your way?
It would be all criticisms are bad. Because, I always thought, oh, they are criticizing, it's bad. But then the real trick is to understand what to filter and what not to filter. Sometimes some real gold nuggets can come out of those criticisms, and it helps you to look at yourself from a different vantage point. So all criticisms are bad. It's a belief that I think it helped me a lot to shed that belief.
I like it. It's like feedback is a gift, right?
Yeah.
Same idea, just expressed differently. Nice. Okay, a place that cracked something open in you.
Well, I struggled with this one. I would say when I first walked into Taj Mahal, it was like so surreal. It was in the sunset, and you can see this huge white marble monument. It's just changing its color. It's becoming, I can't express my feeling. And to know that it was a monument, dedicated to love and marriage and fidelity. I think it was something beautiful. So
I love that. Taj Mahal. I have a friend who used to say there are essentially 2 people in the world, either people that have been and seen Taj Mahal and people that haven't. And I haven't yet. So, something to put on my list. So one thing you had to unlearn.
Well, it's a tough one. And I would say one thing that I had to unlearn is that you have time. You don't have time. So, chop, because, I'm 42. Little would I know that I'll be in 50s in 8 years, and it seems like a long way to go, but it's not really long time. And our life is over. So just do it now. Don't postpone, go hard. So, yeah.
It's so true. Yeah. As you know, I've gotten really into mindfulness. And I think that's the whole philosophy of it is just enjoy every moment now. Now is all you've got because, yesterday is yesterday's nows and tomorrow is tomorrow now. So once you realize that the only moment you ever live is now, but then often in the now, we are busy about like thinking about what should I do tomorrow, it's really hard to actually be in the now.
I think I need to really explore mindfulness. I've heard a lot about it, but never really tried. I think it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, go for it. I'm a complete fan now. Okay, next one. What is your non-negotiable Okay, one non-negotiable right now.
Family time.
Hmm.
It's non-negotiable. I get the biggest joy out of my day when I'm spending time with my loved one. So absolutely.
And that gets you right into the now. That's good. What is the boldest risk that you took and that paid off?
See, I grew up in a suburb of Calcutta, Howrah. And then, back in the days, people never really left. We always were surrounded by the same kind of people going to the same school. So I would say the biggest risk that I've taken is to decide to get out of my hometown, leave Calcutta, and completely uproot myself, go through these different cities, different phases of my life. And that has made me a different person, much more independent. I rely on myself well. I rely on my strength, and I also know my weaknesses. So I think it's a very revealing aspect to it.
So it's to leave home is the one
To
thing.
to leave your
I like
hometown.
that. And that's coming up. You're not the first one talking about that on this podcast. It's interesting, and I can relate to
Yes.
that too, So yeah, it helps to venture out. And then at one point you might want to go back home, but at least you know what's out there, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So did you really think that it has helped you a lot to become a better person or different person to leave your hometown?
Okay. So we're venturing off the quick burst, but that's an interesting one. So my partner hasn't ventured off. So, and sometimes, we discuss because he went traveling a lot, but he didn't physically move out of his home city. And so he even asked me, so what made you leave in first place? And I don't know, for me, that was always a calling, like something it was probably curiosity. It was just something I wanted to do. So I just think it just made me who I am. But I think, if I had stayed physically in one place, I would have probably discovered intellectually, I think it's really a mindset thing. Either you physically go and explore, or you maybe stay in a place, but then you explore in different ways. Maybe you explore by the activities you do or by the people you meet, or I don't know. But I think I think it helps people to grow when you expose yourself to something new. So in that sense, yes, I think it helped me.
I think being adventurous always pays off. Most of the time.
And when it doesn't, you learn, right?
Yeah.
So here's the next one. So one word for your leadership or your life in this chapter.
Doesn't matter what you feel, dress up, show up.
Dress up, show up. I like it.
Yeah. Yes, because I always feel that I used to think that, oh, my mood is not right. I will not do it. I'll postpone it later. But what somebody really told me, I recently came across to this quote, is that your mood follows your action. So take action now and the mood will change automatically. And I think that was a big insight for me.
And it's so, I mean, neuroscience is true. It goes both ways. Your brain doesn't understand the difference. What is real and what is in your mind. So when
Right.
you choose to take a positive view, or when, and then your mood follows, as you say. So there's actually neuroscience on that.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So the last one, you're almost through. You're doing amazing, Tara. So what ripple would you hope that your story creates?
Maybe inspire some, maybe motivate someone to join our club, listen to our story, share their story. That's what we are very curious about.
So for people to share their stories, I think
Share
that's
their
an
story,
important one.
find their voice, as you said, find their voice, become a better person, and don't be small. Challenge yourself. It doesn't matter. Take that little risk.
And it's also true, I guess. I mean, you said you're an introvert. I'm not an introvert, but still, I think often we think our story is maybe not big enough, crazy enough to be inspiring. But almost every story is inspiring, so I think just to also encourage people, just embrace your story, and for sure there will be people that will be inspired, right?
100%, 100%. Yeah. Just remove that silencer from your voice. It serves no purpose. Just speak.
I like it. Just remove the silencer. Maybe that'll be the headline of the episode. We'll see. So thanks so much, Tara. That was I'm always impressed how you start off in one thing and then the conversation goes somewhere else, but it's always deep and I feel like it's always enriching. So thanks so much for sharing your wisdom, your thoughts, and all of that. So to wrap up, if there's someone listening out there who's now ready to wander off the beaten path or ready to take action, what would be the one first small step you'd encourage them to take this week, tomorrow?
Go to Toastmasters.org, find the nearest club in your place, in your city, and just go there and experience as a guest. You don't have to participate, just go there, witness it. Or the second thing, which Maggie said, write down your thoughts. Start journaling. I think that's a huge superpower, underrated superpower. So maybe you can do two things.
I like that. Write down the thoughts and check out a Toastmaster and just go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. Thanks so much, Tara. This was amazing. Pleasure. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much, Maggie. It was absolutely a delight to speak to you today. Thank you.
Great. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
That's it for today. If this stirred something in you, don't just sit on it. Do something, anything, today, right now. Take one small intentional step toward more freedom, flow, and fun. And see where the ride takes you. If this hit home, follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a review. That's how we ripple this energy further. Want to go deeper? Head over to mindset/mastery.ch for coaching, tools, and next steps. Until next time, trust your gut, stay curious, and keep playing it by your rules. Bye for now.